It's so funny that I've actually got my next guest on, Carlos Flores. I don't even know how to take this seriously because he's like my brother. We go back so far, great friend, incredible producer, and also why I'm sitting here today, co-creator of Hi Hello Labs. We've already heard from his wife, Carolina, and now I am really jazzed for you guys to get to hear the other side of this story from my dear, incredible friend and brother, Carlos Flores. So let's dive in as we get to hear how this space, this Hi Hello Lab, the place that we are today, came to life and how he went from just dreaming this wild idea up to actually stepping in and doing it. Welcome back to the Dreamers to Doers podcast where faith meets action. I am really excited for this next episode, but before we dive into this interview, I just wanted to remind you that we are on every podcast platform and also YouTube. So if you want to share your thoughts, like, subscribe, all of those things would help us as we move forward and for more people to get to listen. So we would love that. Okay, so here we are. A little off the cuff, a little unplanned, but I was here with my awesome friend and the owner of Hi Hello Labs, which is where we are right now, and my podcast producer, Carlos Flores, great friend, entrepreneur, businessman. And I was like, what if we flip the tables and I interviewed you? Because I'm sitting here right now because of a dream that was in Carlos and Carolina's heart. And here we are getting to do this podcast because they said yes, they stepped out, and they are in the thick of walking out this crazy, audacious dream of Hi Hello Labs. Carlos, I am jazzed to have you on. This was such a fun idea. A little whim of an idea, right?
Yeah.
And it's really fun because almost hard to like take each other seriously in our adult life because we've known each other for so long in our we were adults, but barely.
Young adults. That's the term.
That is the term for that. Okay. We were young adults. We were this is pre-children. James and I were married. We lived in apartments across the street from each other, and Carlos would come over and cook us Mexican food, and we would watch Lost every Tuesday.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We also did random things like play hide and seek in the dark.
Like who does that?
Who? I'm sure, Carlos, we were like 23, 24.
I was the youngest one out of the batch.
That was a really hardcore. How old are you?
I'm 28.
You were?
I'm sorry, I'm not 28. I'm 38 now.
Oh, yeah, but at the time you were younger.
Yeah,
You're a little younger. Okay. Anyways, we've had some really good times.
Yeah,
we've had some really bad times too.
Yeah. We're almost family at this point, all of us. Like we travel together, we do life together.
Yes.
Our kids know each other's lives.
Yes.
Which I love. So
it's amazing. Yeah. Some of the bad times were the time that you got out of the car. So we're parked.
This wasn't a bad time.
This was awful.
A funny core memory.
This is a core memory because it was horrible. Carlos is in the car behind James and I at a stoplight, not parked. Stoplight
at night.
We had just left a movie. Potentially it was a scary movie, which I don't watch scary movies, so I don't know.
I'm
Carlos.
not a scary movie guy either, but
maybe. Anyways, it probably wasn't a scary movie. I'm just typically scared. So Carlos gets out of the car at the light and comes, and he like threw his hands on the window and scared the daylights out of me.
So I banged the glass. Sarah like jumps out of her seat, like freaking out, and all I hear is the glass. James pulls the window down, and all I hear is like, "I'm gonna kill you."
James was genuinely
as we
mad.
Pull off.
He was so mad at you.
So funny.
He's protecting his woman.
I'm sure.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure there's many times where we wanted to kill each other.
Yeah, those were the good times and the bad times. Okay, Carlos, well, let's dive into why we're really here, which is Dreamers to Doers. This lab, Hi Hello, this business, this started from a dream in your heart. And I just kind of want to get a little bit of the behind the scenes of Carlos Flores and what you were thinking. So Is this something that you have always had in your heart to do?
No. In fact, I never thought that I never thought that I'd be an entrepreneur or a business owner.
Really?
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
just good, like, I'm gonna work for somebody.
I grew up with that mentality of the 9 to 5 is the way to go.
Yeah.
It's a secure way. It's your 401k,
Mhm.
health insurance, a steady paycheck, and you just grow up in that and you think, "Oh, this is the way life is."
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got married that that mentality
Yeah,
switched.
because Carolina is
Mhm.
entrepreneur to her core, isn't she?
Yeah. My wife, she's definitely she's owned many, many businesses. A lot of successful ones and a
Yes,
lot of failed ones, but she has that
that's the
entrepreneurship
road. Yeah.
vein inside of her.
Okay, so but you had been in producing, video producing.
Yeah, production has always been kind of like in my avenue of expertise. I started editing videos on Windows, which I don't like to confess because it's embarrassing. But
Because 'cause you're a Mac guy,
yeah, I'm a
right?
Mac guy through and through.
Okay, we
Um,
know this.
so I started dabbling in media. I went to Bible college, same Bible college you and James went
Mhm.
to CFNI, and I was in the media department there, and I loved everything tech, lights, cameras, action, all of that. Um, and I thought, my ultimate goal was actually to work for Pixar. I really wanted to
Yeah,
work for
that's right.
Pixar. Turns out to living in California and especially San Francisco, you have to sell your right kidney and
Yeah.
half of the other one, um, just to be able to afford rent and just build a very competitive industry like
Sure.
that is just almost like nearly impossible.
So what was the moment that Hi Hello Labs became an idea?
Hi Hello Labs actually became an idea 2 years prior to it existing,
Okay.
and as it came as an idea, not necessarily for me. It was an idea that I presented to my employer at the time, which is the same ministry that you worked
Yeah.
for Christ for the Nations, Christ for all nations.
Mhm.
I presented the idea to my boss at the time, which a man that I really respected and admired, and he turned me down. He said it was a dumb idea, and I respect everyone's opinion, and it was probably a dumb idea,
Yeah.
but look at me now.
I
Was
know.
it dumb? But he said it was dumb, so I was like, okay, no worries. I almost like forgot about it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I quit the company I was with that I needed to find out something for me.
Mhm.
I went through depression. I went through an identity crisis because my identity was in the employer I was with,
Yeah.
and I was pretty high up there on the
So
ranks.
you weren't like, "Hey, we're gonna do this idea," and then you left. You had already left, and then you were just in a space where you're like, "I don't know what I'm gonna
Yeah,
do."
because I
Going
forgot.
through a hard
I forgot
time.
about this idea.
Yeah. And then when did it kinda come back again?
So, I was going through these stages of like lack of identity. I went from being up here, which I ended up being the international creative director for the
Mhm.
whole company.
Wow.
And I went from that traveling all over the world, having 50
Mhm.
plus people under me, to having nobody, to
Mhm.
just not knowing what I was going to do. I soon after had lunch with a friend, and my friend was like, "You need to stop complaining."
Mhm.
Not necessarily in these words, but you
Yeah.
need to stop complaining, find a problem, and create and build a solution.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't need this.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
you're
a good
supposed to
friend.
be my friend. And I'm like, screw you.
Yeah.
So, not in those words,
Yeah.
but I left the lunch. I went home. And as I'm driving home, the Lord showed me, which is so funny. Like, I was crying as I'm driving home because I'm going through this depression right at this
Yeah.
time. So I don't know what I'm doing with my life. My wife and me and my wife had this other company called Hi Hello Co, which is a
Mhm.
corporate gifting company, and that's kind of taken off, which is great because during this time I have no work, so
Yeah.
I'm not working. So
Yeah.
Kai Loco is kind of taking off, which is awesome. But again, it's like her thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, God, what about me?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing my wife like just boom, like she's getting invited to speak. She's becoming
Mhm.
a speaker. I'm like, I didn't even know she was a speaker. She's like killing it left and right. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm not jealous. And I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
I was not jealous of her. I was so proud of her and I was so happy for her. And I think it was her time to shine
Yeah.
because for the longest time, she was in the back burner. She was
Mhm.
Carlos's wife.
Mhm.
And now I'm Carolina's husband. And it's hard to get used to, but I was
Sure.
like, you know
Yeah.
what? Good. Like, I'm with you. So I'm driving home. I'm crying because I
Mhm.
feel defeated. I feel like a loser. I feel like I have no
Mhm.
purpose. And God immediately like speaks to me and says, and I mean, I don't know how God speaks to any of you,
He
but the way he
speaks when we're
speaks,
driving, apparently.
does he? I
That's
guess
what
that happens to me.
Yeah. No, that's me too. That's when I feel like I heard from the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
He speaks when
It's
I'm
because your
driving or
hands are
I'm
on the
washing the
wheel.
dishes.
Yeah. Or your hands are on the dishes.
I
Oh,
guess.
that's a
Yeah,
good
that's
one.
crazy. Yeah, I actually do a lot of thinking
Yeah.
when I do dishes, but anyway. So I'm crying, I'm driving home and God tells me, "I told you what to do. Go do it."
Yeah.
That was it. And when he said I told you what to do, immediately the thought of my conversation with my previous boss came afloat and it just like popped on my mind and I was like, "What? Okay."
Yeah.
And I knew I was like, "Okay, I need to build not necessarily a podcast studio, but a membership based type
Mhm.
business in the media world."
Mhm.
And immediately I called my wife, make a U-turn, call my wife, and I said, "Baby, we are going to open up a studio." And that's when I said, a podcast studio
Yeah.
in downtown Orlando. And it's got to be downtown Orlando. I'm driving there now, start finding
You
places.
drove there
I
right
drove.
then?
I didn't even know where I was going. I literally just drove to drive.
That is amazing.
And it had been years since I've driven by where we are located now.
Yeah.
But you remember we used to come to this theater,
Yeah.
which is right
Oh,
across
yeah.
the
We went
street
to the movies.
all the time. But it'd been years. And I literally drove by this street and I said, I went all the way down, driving down, and I was talking on the phone with a mutual friend of ours,
Mhm.
Nathan. And I was telling him, God just told me this, and I'm sharing with him,
Uh-huh.
and I'm crying with him, and we're talking back and forth, and
Yeah.
he's crying. Like, no, he wasn't crying. He never cries.
Nathan was crying.
Um, we were just, it was great to just share that with someone who's gonna
Mhm.
celebrate it.
Yeah.
So 3 days later, literally, my wife made like 4 or 5 appointments in different venues, and where we are, which isn't entirely everything that we have
Mhm.
now, but we could not afford.
Yeah.
We had a budget, we had savings. Thankfully, 2 years prior to, which is a little bit of a side note, but God had told me that I was going to leave my employer in 2
Mm.
years. So I told my wife and I said, we have 2 years to start saving up
You
because we don't know
prepared.
where we're
Yeah.
going. So we started preparing the way, but we didn't know what we were going to do.
Mm.
Fast forward, we have savings to open up a business,
Yeah.
but we couldn't afford where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
So God's hand just worked its way, and the landlord who showed us another building that we could afford, the build out was just going to be too expensive. So
Mhm.
they said, you know what? We'll give you the original place you said you couldn't afford for the same price as that other one.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, God, I'm listening.
Yeah. I'm here. Okay, so this is all within like a week's time. So
Yeah.
you're depressed, then you're hearing this. You're now
It's
on a
literally on a
mountaintop.
roller coaster.
You're
Yeah.
like living your best life. This is awesome. Was there a moment that you were like, what are we doing? I shouldn't do that. Did you ever feel held back, or were you just like, once you heard and knew, you're full steam ahead? What were some of your challenges in the actual like stepping out process?
It's scary to dive headfirst into anything because we're such a society that we're planners, so we
Mhm.
like to know where the next steps are going. And if we don't know,
Yeah.
we get anxious, depressed, angry, sad, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like that. It happened to me. So it was very hard for me to trust 100% and know, like, all right, God, you open the door, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And we immediately found success in High Hello Labs from places we had no idea. Like business started coming in from left and right, from places that we were like, how did we know? Like what?
Yeah.
How did that connection come about?
Yeah.
Now, and obviously then I knew like it's just God's favor.
Yeah.
And when we obey, we walk into that dream,
Mm-hmm.
the doing becomes a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that it's easy all the time, but it becomes easier because we're just like, you know what? I'm going to put my blinders on.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on what God is telling me to do.
Yeah.
And whether chaos is happening to my left and my right, I need to focus on Him.
Yeah.
Have that tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And it's hard, it's easier said than done, which it is. But
So you're 2 years in now.
yeah, we're about 2 years in.
What is your are there any challenges you're facing as you're like 2 years in? You're walking this out now.
Yes.
You
I
just
think
opened an expansion. That was pretty cool.
I think opening up a business, and you guys surely know, has risks, and you learn and you make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, and you're constantly like progressing. But a year ago, so probably like 8 months, 9 months into the business, we had zero money in our bank account. Well, not that, I'm lying. We had $7 in our bank account.
Wow.
And we didn't tell anybody. We because I could easily have made a call to any of my friends, any of my family, and had thousands in my bank account.
Yeah.
But this month, it was October, I remember, we paid rent, salaries, everything that needed to get paid to the business. And we had $7 in our bank account, and I was like, God, why?
Yeah.
Like, we're doing I'm working like nonstop, both myself and Carolina.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? And no answer. I was getting so annoyed and so mad because I was like, God, what did I do? Like, where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
We had made a few mistakes during that summertime, before October. And there was a couple things that, family emergencies that came about that took over and kind of drained our finances that we weren't expecting. But one of my clients, who's a financial advisor, they do a podcast here in the studio. We were doing his podcast one day, and his guest was complimenting the studio, and he made a gesture under his breath, and he just said like, he said, oh yeah, Hi Hello Labs, a studio here in town. They're really near to us. And he said, though they charge very little. And that kind of stayed in my mind. After the show was done, I asked him, he's a financial advisor. I said, hey, Claudio, can I ask you something? He's like, yeah. He's like, do you really think we charge very little? And he said, can I be frank with you? I was like, please. I'm learning. Again, I'm new at everything, right? He's like, absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to raise your prices by like 60%.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, 60%, that's crazy. Like,
yeah.
Like when you hear about raising prices, you hear about like raising them like 5.
Yeah.
Like they're in the single digit numbers. He's like 60%. And I'm like, okay. And I told my wife, and we said, okay, well, let's do it. And we raised the prices up 60%, and no one complained.
Wow. And
he said, what's happening is you're giving them Carlos. That's your service. So you what's going to happen when you have so much work? Like, you're not going to be able to withstand all that. So because we had made that mistake, we were charging very little. It took us down this path.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're like, we blame God for like what's happening, why, but it's our own stupidity of fulfilling our dream that like put us in that position. So I was like, okay, well, I made a mistake, obviously, and God, I don't know how to fix it, but I do know that I have a God and that I have a
Mhm.
Father who has money. So let me pray, let me fast. And I
Yeah.
prayed for 4 days and I fasted for 4 days. And responded through High Hello Co.
Wow.
And in the matter of 4 days, we had over $28,000 in our bank account.
Wow.
That we went from $7 to
Wow.
$28,000, and it just almost like it was like a coin, like a
Yeah.
coin toss, like it flipped over.
So
The
fast.
lesson that I learned was that if he had us back then, he'll have us.
Yeah.
Like he'll have our backs moving forward.
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to doubt him.
Why do you think it's important that you guys are doing this?
I think there's a few answers to that question. It's important for our own testimony
Yeah.
that like you don't have to have a 9 to 5 job to make ends meet.
Yeah.
At least for me. Two, it's a tool that we're giving our clients to be able to spread their
Yeah.
knowledge.
Love that.
So we're not just like giving you a service that goes nowhere, like it's going
Yes.
worldwide.
Yeah.
So there's a mission in that. And three, it's helping us. And one of my fortes is team building. I
Hmm.
love building teams.
Yeah.
So it's giving me the opportunity to build a team or teams that like can expand not only here at High Hello Labs, but also in the community.
Yeah.
And we have like different events called masters where it's like we bring in professionals to teach the young ones. Like I was young one day
Mm-hmm.
and I needed somebody to teach me. And thankfully I had someone who
Yeah.
gave his knowledge free.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so many of us creatives that don't have that.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
incredible that you're multiplying what's on your life. And that's a beautiful thing. Okay. What would you say to the listener who's listening and maybe they have actually stepped out in what God's called them to do? They're in the middle of doing it and they've hit a wall of disappointment, discouragement, like you did when your bank account went to $7 and you immediately go to, have I made a mistake? God, why did you call me here? Why am I actually doing this if this is where you're going to put me? Will you talk to that person who's kind of in the middle of it? Did
Yeah.
you ever want to quit?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
maybe they want to quit. What would you say to them?
Um, guys, it's okay to feel that way. Don't judge yourself. If you feel like a loser, it's okay to feel like a loser. It's part of the growth. It's part of the process. Failing is part of growth. And you sometimes think that failing is like a bad thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. It builds us.
Yeah.
Makes us wiser. It makes us not make the same mistakes. Now, if you're failing for the same thing, then I'm
Yeah.
like, you need some help. But failing is part of it and it's okay. Arguing is part of it and it's okay. Feeling like, there's others that are better, that's okay. Just don't dwell in it.
Yeah.
Dwelling in that pity mentality like takes you nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have easily like compared myself to my friends who are very successful in what
Mm-hmm.
they do. And it's like, what would that give me? What would I
Yeah.
have gained?
Yeah.
It's okay to fail. It's okay
Yeah.
to hit the wall but but it's not okay to just stay there. You have
Yeah.
to pick up, let's go, let's do it again. Let's reinvent. So what I would tell those people that are right there, it'll get better, but it's going to get harder. So even when it gets better, the challenges that come are different. You mentioned earlier we just expanded and we did. We
Mm-hmm.
tripled our size in mass and staff. But even in that, it has its own challenges.
Yeah.
Like there's more salaries we are needing to
Right.
account for. There's more um, clients that we have to comply with. There's
Yeah.
more clients that are annoying that we have
Mm-hmm.
to you know,
I think we're always
smooth them
looking
up.
to get there, and especially talking about dreaming and doing, and it's like, oh, this is so cool. I like being in this lab. It's just the most amazing thing. And I'm looking
Mm,
at you like, this is so cool. You're like living out this awesome dream. But it's not to say that it doesn't come with
price.
a price and its own set of challenges, and that as you continue to grow and work out, there's never this pinnacle moment that you get to that feels like, oh, I've done it. I'm perfectly fully fulfilled. I've
Hmm.
checked off what God's called me to do. I'm finished. I'm here. It's amazing. It's like we are in a journey
Yeah.
for the rest of our life, and we will
Yes.
be dreaming and doing forever. And so I think it's also remembering that when we talk about a calling of God, when we talk about what's the dream in your heart, when we talk about vision, it's not just this one pinnacle thing. And then
Hmm.
when you actually step out and do it, it's like your whole life is fulfilled in a nutshell.
Yeah.
No, this is an ongoing, as we have our relationship with the Lord, this will be an ongoing thing
Hmm.
that we continue to walk through and
Hmm.
will continue to face new and bigger challenges. And
Yep.
it's like we're just working out muscles to get stronger and stronger. And like you're
Hmm.
saying, how cool is the growth? But now
Hmm.
it's like your strength has to be there to handle
Yeah.
X amount of salaries and to handle the weight of stress of a larger
Hmm.
building and more people coming. And so it's a great perspective. And I feel like what an honor to get to see a little bit behind the curtains of how this came about. And
Yeah.
I think anybody who walks in here would just feel like, man, these people are incredible that could dream this up. I mean, you said every
Yeah.
room came from just this idea in your
Yeah.
mind.
Hmm.
You designed every single room.
Yeah.
They are incredible. If I could walk you around to show you, I will on my social, but to show you every room, it is so incredible, so creative. And the fact that, and you even told me, you were like, these were just visions from the Lord, and I just knew,
Yeah.
and I did it. And so it's a beautiful cadence of this grace and
Hmm.
empowerment that God is giving you, because this
Yeah.
is his dream in
Hmm.
you. And
Mm.
also, we're human beings on
Yeah.
this fallen, broken earth, and we got to grind it out.
We do, and it's not easy. And
Yeah.
it gets better as it gets harder, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
The hardship of growing is pain,
Yeah.
and you go through pain. And
Yeah.
we there was many things that happened here, like you see us now, but it's like there was some backstabbing that happened. There was some emotional
Mm-hmm.
problems that
Mm-hmm.
happened. There was some um gossip that started, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy that the biggest supporters that you should have are your least supporters. So
Yeah.
you start learning like what people you're going to have in your life. Who are you going to surround yourself with? What are you going to do as far as like nurture your dream,
Yeah.
because the dream is given to you, but
Yeah.
it's up to you what you do with it, and it's up to you to guard it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've always kind of like taken care of is protected, not speaking the
Mm-hmm.
dream so early or prematurely,
Yeah.
because there's so many people who are going to come at it and be like, I think you missed it
Yeah.
when you didn't.
Discouragement. Mm.
In fact, my financial advisor friend,
Mm-hmm.
who told me I was charging very little, advised me not to expand.
Oh, wow.
And then I did anyway. And now he's like, I'm so glad you expanded.
Wow.
Some people won't see
Yeah.
what you're seeing in your mind.
Yes.
Nobody saw. I would explain, we're going to have this here. We're going to do this here. This
Yeah.
wall's going to be this, that. Even my wife, you
Mm.
could tell her. And for example, there's pieces here that she's like, I would have not
Yeah.
in a million years thought that that's what he was going to do.
Yeah.
But it was all in my mind. It was all a dream that was brewing, that was brewing, that was brewing. And the way the expansion happened, I was actually locked out of the office one day. I was sitting on the floor at the front door because
Uh-huh.
the building manager wasn't here yet, and she was going to open the door for me. Our neighbors, who is now where our
Uh-huh.
expansion is, invited me into their space. And
That's
literally, Sarah,
awesome.
I'm sitting there having my coffee, and I'm seeing this real estate of cubicles, and I'm like, the potential.
Wow.
And that's where the expansion birthed,
Wow.
in that,
Yeah.
in my neighbors, sitting there, and just I saw everything. I saw, okay, I would pull a wall here. This would serve that purpose. That would serve that
Yeah.
purpose. And I drew it on paper
I
just so
love
I
it.
would never forget.
Yeah.
And when I showed it to my wife, she's like, I don't think there's enough room for all of that. I'm not an architect, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not an interior designer,
Yeah.
and I'm actually pretty bad at math. So I was like, maybe there's not enough room. But when he gives you a dream, like,
Yes.
and you become a vessel, everything falls into place.
Yeah.
And a lot of mistakes became masterpieces.
That's amazing.
So
I think that is a word. A lot of mistakes became masterpieces. I think that's one of the hardest things about just stepping out in general or being an entrepreneur. And not that all of this is about being an entrepreneur, but that's one of the hardest things. It's really high highs, really low lows, but without the failures,
yeah.
you would never learn. And so, really honored to have you on, Carlos.
Thank you for having me.
Really happy to hear the backstory of where we are sitting right now. That's encouraging and exciting. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I mean, just after 2 years to already be in this place.
Oh, gosh,
so
yes.
excited to have you back on in 5 and see where we're at. So thank you
Hopefully
again,
yeah,
Carlos.
for sure.
We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And we will see you next time.